guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about all things Rover and my experience cat sitting for Rover. Yes, I am wearing a heart cat shirt, so don't judge, but I wanted to be festive for this video. In today's video, we're specifically going to be talking about my Rover profile and things to maybe think about when making your profile. We're going to talk about how long it took me to get my first client through Rover, how much I generally make through Rover, raising your rates, bringing clients off of the Rover app, Rover tips, paying taxes, and write-offs. So let's just jump right in with our Rover profile. So for today's video, I'm actually going to be doing a little screen share from my iPhone to show you what my profile looks like and all of the details that we're going to be talking about today. So as you'll see, I have a very clear profile picture as well as a really nice looking banner photo, and I think that's super important. I think with your profile picture, in my opinion, I like to just have my face and no other cats or animals in the photo, but for my banner image, I have a picture of me with my cat. Before doing Rover, I have only done like random cat sitting jobs for like friends. I've never formally done cat sitting for someone that I didn't know. So in regards to experience, no, I didn't have any like formal or professional experience cat sitting, but I think it's still very easy to show in your profile that you are qualified enough to watch someone's cat. In my about section, you can read, I say that I've been in love with cats for as long as I can remember. I grew up with 3 cats in my home, immediately adopted my own kitty as soon as I moved out. I regularly take care of friends' cats in the DMV area when they're out of town, and I'm happy to meet some new kitty friends. I was very transparent in saying that I only really watch my friends' cats and like I don't do this professionally. I said I run my own business from home, so my schedule is completely flexible. I'm happy to visit your kitty whenever is best for their schedule. So it does help to have a flexible schedule, but it's not required. You can definitely set when you're available. I know there's people who do Rover while also working other hourly jobs or even like full-time 9-to-5 jobs, so it's definitely possible, but you will be more limited in the jobs you can get, especially if you're trying to do like dog walking on Rover, but I'm mainly talking about cat sitting today. Then I also added that I'll gladly send you pictures and video updates of your sweet kitty. I'm also happy to play with them using their favorite toys and don't mind spending extra time for snuggle sessions while I'm there. So I wanted to make it very clear in this paragraph that I'm in it for the long haul. Like I'm here to play with your cat, to cuddle with your cat. I genuinely like cats. I'm not here to just like feed your cat and dip out. You know what I mean? So I found that that trait alone has definitely gotten me repeat clients once people were aware that I genuinely love cats and I'm there to literally play with them, to hold them, to cuddle with them, to pet them. Like I'm there to actually hang out with the cat. I've had multiple clients say like that's why they loved having me as their pet sitter and they're totally willing to book me again. So that is all I have. Besides, then you can put your own pet. So I do have a picture of Boba and some like information about her. And then the last thing I have is multiple images that you can see of other cats that I have watched of my friends, and then a picture of Boa sleeping on me to show that like I really love cuddling with cats. But again, you'll see these are like very casual photos, like nothing too crazy. And I definitely could update these now because I have plenty of client photos from when I have done visits, but honestly, this is doing me very well. So like I'm just have been leaving it for now. And I will say that when I first started, I had no reviews. Rover does give you the option to send out a email to maybe people you've watched their cats for before or their dogs or whatever you're trying to do on the Rover app, and they're able to actually fill out a like testimonial for you, and it does, I think, go into your review section. I did send that out to some of my friends, but none of them ended up ever doing it, and I didn't push them because I wasn't at the beginning thinking this was actually going to be that profitable, to be honest, but I was able to actually get my first few clients with no reviews on my profile. I would say it took about a month since I posted my profile on the site and had everything up to date on there that I actually got my first client. So you'll see here my first payment was in September. My first visit was early September. I had made my entire profile in like I think the first or second week of August. So it took a few weeks. Be patient if you're not getting any visits, but the thing that I would suggest to get clients as quickly as possible is to look up whatever services you're trying to provide as if you're trying to find someone to watch your own animals. So I found for me, if you're here because you also love cats, you're in a really good position because Rover, Boba. Speaking of cats, my cat's trying to knock over my Christmas tree. So yeah, if you're here to specifically watch cats, like you're not really a dog person like me, then you're in a great position for Rover because I found that most of the sitters on Rover are all specifically for dogs, or they are dogs and then they also will do cats. But because my profile is specifically showing that I only watch cats, I only get requests for cats, and it's very clear like I'm a cat sitter. I don't know if I mentioned my profile title, I think I forgot to mention that part. My profile title, which this is extremely important, is your kitty's next best friend. And then I have a little cat emoji, a heart. I made it extremely clear from my profile title that I am a cat sitter. I specifically watch cats. And your profile title is like the one thing people are going to see when they're searching for sitters in their area. So they're going to see your picture, they're going to see your name, and they're going to see your profile title. Then they're going to see your reviews and they're going to see your rates. So that's the 5 pieces of information they will see when searching for you and looking for a cat sitter or dog sitter, whatever you're doing. If you think about it, the only thing you can really control there is your profile picture and your profile name. For me, like I said before, I think it's good to have a very clear image of your face, because when you add an animal into the profile picture, it gets like really small. And I think when people can connect with you better by seeing your face, it really helps. So a really happy, nice picture of you that's clear and bright is good. And then a profile title that's clear what you specialize in or why they should specifically pick you is a great idea. So for me, I put your kitty's next best friend because number 1, I'm specifically doing cat sitting. I want to make that clear so no one reaches out to me about dog sitting or dog walking. And then number 2, I wanted to make it clear that a lot of cats end up really liking me by me saying I'm your cat's next best friend. It's showing cats love me, and I'm almost positive that your cat will love me too. So back to what we were saying, the next thing that I would consider when setting up your profile is your rates. So with your rates, you want to look at similar people in your area that are promoting the same services as you, and maybe people that have a few reviews. Rover gave me a recommended amount to start my rates at. And if we go here and we look at the price for my first job, you'll see that my holiday rate at the time was $21. And from my memory, my normal rate was $18 when I first started. There's also something on your profile called cat care, and I think what it's supposed to be is if someone books a drop-in visit with you for maybe their dogs, but then they also have a cat they want you to care for, they can add on cat care to a drop-in visit. So make sure that you set your cat care rates to be the exact same as your drop-in visit rates. Otherwise, you have times where, like this drop-in visit for Clover that I have, I did 6 visits at $15 per visit because they had booked me for cat care, and I should have been getting paid $18 per visit for drop-in visit pricing. So make sure you check that. I started with around $18 as my initial drop-in visit cost because around me, that's what people with 1 or 2 stars were charging. So look for people around you. You could even drop your rates by like $1 when you have 0 reviews so that you stand out as being like a lower cost option for people, even though you don't have a lot of reviews. Once you get a few reviews, that's when you want to start raising your rates. And this is extremely important because as you get more reviews, there's going to be other people with no reviews that have maybe the same rates as you. But since you have more reviews, you have some social proof that you're going to do a good job. It is a good idea to start raising your rates. And again, make sure you also raise the cat care rate so you don't get gypped on a job. So what I have found is that if I raise my rates by about $1 at a time, it's like a good enough amount. By every few reviews, I raise my rate about $1. Now I currently charge $22 per drop-in visit for a 30-minute drop-in visit, and I started at $18. The other thing to note is that your holiday rates are going to be really important because most people are actually going to book you over holidays, whether it's a like 3-day weekend, it's Halloween, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas. For those rates, you want to pay attention because once people book you for a holiday rate, you know that they're willing to pay you for that rate. What I quickly realized is that all these people are willing to pay $21 per visit, totally comfortable raising my rates to $20 per visit for a base visit because even if it's not a holiday, people will still be willing to pay that rate. So as I started raising my rates, I also raised my holiday rates a tiny bit, but I didn't raise them too much. So my holiday rate right now is $23 per visit, even though I started at $21 per visit. So initially my holiday rate was $3 more than my normal rate. Now my holiday rate is only $1 more than my normal rate. This is like super variable. You can definitely do some trial and error to see if raising your rates too high makes you not get as many visits and things like that, but it is kind of hard to tell because of course you don't really know how many people are booking. Push comes to shove, you can always go back to the drawing board, go search up the exact services you provide and see what other people in your area are charging and make sure you don't raise your rates like too much higher than anyone else based off of the number of reviews and your repeat clients. The next thing I want to talk about is bringing clients off of the Rover app. So Rover actually takes a 20% charge out of all of your visits. So for example, when I was at one point charging $20 for a drop-in visit, Rover would take out 20% and I would only get paid paid $16 for a drop-in visit. Initially, when I first started doing Rover, they did not have any type of tipping mechanism in the app, so I was not getting any tips on top of this. So it was extremely important for me early on to make sure that I was discussing with my clients the option of taking them off of the Rover app and doing the visit through Venmo. So once they were comfortable with me, once they knew me, they had the initial backing of getting to know me through the Rover app and being able to know for sure that I've been background checked and I'm safe. Most of them are pretty comfortable with doing maybe the second or third visit off of the app and through Venmo. The downside of this is you don't have the Rover app to give you reminders about the dates that you're doing visits, but if you're good at keeping yourself accountable in terms of when you're supposed to visit the cats, then it's totally fine to just move it off of the app and kind of start your own little side business doing whatever type of sitting that you do. So the great thing about this is once you move people off of the app, then you're not getting that 20% taken out of your pay. So with one of my first clients, Joanne, who I showed you guys, she paid $21 for a holiday visit. Once I took her off the app, I just always charged her $21 per visit because that's what she was used to paying, and she paid me through Venmo. From then on out, we talked over text to plan out the visits, and I would just go watch her cat, she'd pay me through Venmo, and that was it. The important thing to note here, which we'll discuss soon, is that you still have to pay taxes whether or not you're doing this through the Rover app. So you want to make sure you keep really good records of the visits that you do through Venmo and how much you make through those as well. So the next thing I want to talk about is Rover tips. So before Rover tips were a thing, I never was tipped by any of my clients after doing a cat sitting job, mostly because they probably didn't think they needed to tip because they weren't being asked to tip through the app. Then Rover rolled out a new function in late October where they gave the option to tip. Now there's something to note here. I don't know all of the specifics about this, but one thing I found interesting was number one, as soon as they rolled out this new function, I was getting tipped for every single job you'll see here. My first few jobs, tipping was not a thing. I didn't get any tips. Then starting October 22nd with Kostya, I started getting tips. I got 20% for that visit. The next visit, I got a little bit over 10%. Next visit, 15%, and so on and so forth. But what's interesting here is if you look at Zuzu, so we have drop-in visit for Zuzu, $80 with a $12 tip. Then I did another visit for Zuzu recently after that, and I got no tip from that. Now, what I really think happens is that Rover asks people to review and tip after you do a visit. But I think if it's a repeat client, that Rover doesn't remind them to review and tip. I'm not 100% sure on this, but that's just my guess, because another client that I had that was a repeat client for Orlando and Oscar, they initially had tipped the first time I did the visit with them, and then the second time they also didn't tip, just like Zuzu. So my thought is that Rover is not telling people to tip the second time. They're only asking them to tip the first time. So what that means to me is that it's even more important now than before that I try my best to discuss with my clients if they're comfortable going through Venmo instead of the Rover app, that we start going that route for the future, because then I won't be getting 20% taken out of my pay from Rover fees, and they don't have to worry about tipping, and it won't really matter because the additional money I'm going to make from not paying Rover fees will just equal out. So really what that means is that from our first initial visits where we're meeting new clients, we're going to be able to get tip money to cover the cost of the Rover fees, and then from then on out we can go through Venmo. Now there is one downside to taking your clients off of Rover, and that is that you will no longer be having repeat clients through the app. The way Rover shows your profile when people are searching for a sitter, they base it off first, obviously your availability and whether or not this person meets the requirements for whatever you show. So like the miles radius from your home that you're willing to go for visits. But what brings you to the top of that list, if you do meet the availability requirements and the location requirements, is number one, your reviews, number two, your response rate, and number three, the amount of repeat clients you have. So if you go into modify services and then you scroll down to sitter performance scores, you will be able to see your sitter performance score based off of the different types of things or services that you offer. So for me, I used to also offer overnight visits and I don't do that anymore. So now I only have drop-in visits on here. So if we look here, we have our booking score of 99, which is good. Basically, that's of the people who contact you for the first time, how many end up booking and leaving a great review compared to other sitters. And then the next one is your repeat score. So how many of your first time clients come back and book with you again, and how often compared to other sitters, and I have a score of 97. Now, obviously, the problem with the fact that I don't get repeat clients is that this number here will not go up from me getting bookings from repeat clients. That will affect the place that my profile comes up when people search for me, but in my opinion, that's not the end of the world. So what I try to do is kind of do a little bit of a mix. Every once in a while, I will have repeat clients that I don't ask to go on to Venmo. It kind of depends on the client and how often I speak with them, if I feel comfortable even asking them to move to Venmo. But I try to just play it by ear because having repeat clients does look great for my profile, and it actually shows up on your profile. If we go into my profile's link specifically, we'll see here that I have had 3 repeat clients. Then it goes into showing all of the reviews that I have and my responses to them, which do show up. So make sure that you do respond to the reviews you get and that you put something nice and like show that you actually care. So I like to always mention the cat's name that I watched in the review responses to show that I actually am like paying attention to that. Then you'll see if you go down my experience, it says 5 years of experience. So it does ask you that when you make your profile. How long have you been like taking care of cats or watching cats? I could have put like my whole life, which I've seen other sitters who like put a super long time, like the amount of time they've been born. But for me, I chose to put how many years I've been directly caring for my own cat and caring for other people's cats, which I got my cat about 5 years ago. So that's why I picked 5 years. Then it shows my response rate, which is 100%, as well as my response time, which is a few minutes. And then bookings with photo updates is 100%. Those 3 communication points are also super key in getting your profile to get to the top when people search for you. So make sure you always respond to people when they reach out to you for a potential job, even if you don't want to do the job. Always respond as quickly as you possibly can and let them know that you're not available or it's not a good fit, or that yes, you are available and you want to set up a meet and greet to get to know them and their cat or dog, whatever you're doing. And then the last thing is, even if someone doesn't request photos for the bookings, make sure you at least send 1 photo every time you do a visit so that you do get that booking with photo updates at 100%, because that's great for your profile as well. I'll send like 3 to 5 photos per visit. The total you can send is 8. So sometimes if I'm watching 2 cats, I will send like 8 total photos and like 4 of each cat. I did forget to mention the total that I've made through Rover. So in the past 3 months, I have made a total of $2,526 doing cat sitting through Rover. That is a combination of my Rover visits that I've done through the app, as well as the visits that I've taken off of Rover and done through Venmo. That's a pretty good sum of money in my opinion. And that's from about 22 different clients that I've had, or 22 different bookings that I've had. Some of those obviously being the same client multiple times. So I think that's pretty great. And those all range from like 1 visit up to like 10 visits, and 1 cat up to 3 cats. Like, I've done the whole range there. And obviously, depending on how many cats you watch, you make more money. Depending on how long the visits are, you make more money, etc. My first month, I made about $450. My second month, I made about $580. And then my third month, I made $1,487. And that's all because of Thanksgiving, because a ton of people went away. On one day, I had 13 visits in a day, and I did work like 13 hours straight. So it was a crazy time, but if you're willing to work on holidays, like, you will make good money, and you can definitely set your limits of how many cats you can watch in one day. And my suggestion would be to consider that each 30-minute visit will take you about an hour. So I like to always add a 15-minute before and end buffer time for each visit. If you estimate about an hour per day, that can help you decide how many visits you're willing to do in one day. I would suggest like 8 to 10 at your maximum, because honestly 13 is pretty rough. But if it means getting a few more clients that like spreads out over the week, then having one day where you have like 13 visits is not the end of the world. So the last thing I want to talk about here is taxes and write-offs. Doing Rover means that you are self-employed and you will have to file a 1099 for your taxes. I'm not a tax professional. This is not tax or financial advice. I'm just sharing my experience. I have yet to file any of my own taxes yet, since again, I've only been doing this for about 3 months. And when you are self-employed, you do have to pay quarterly taxes if you make a certain amount of money. So you'll want to do your own research to see if you should be paying quarterly taxes. I suggest it no matter how much money you're making, because then you're not blindsided at the end of the year when you have to pay taxes for the entire year's worth of income that you made through cat sitting or any other 1099 or gig work type of jobs that you're doing. So basically how I estimate my taxes is I take 20% of all of the income I make and I set that aside into a bucket in my budget for taxes. I make sure that every time I get money, 20% of that just goes into this other bucket, so I'm ready to pay quarterly taxes. The quarterly tax schedule is different for each quarter. They're not all 3 months, so make sure you look into that as well. Quarter 4, I think, is September through December, so it's 4 months, and then one of the quarters is only like 2 months. So pay attention to that. Make sure you know the dates of when you should be paying taxes, etc. It's usually 2 weeks into the month after the last month of the quarter before, if that makes sense. So for example, quarter 4 ends at the end of this year, end of December, and the taxes for quarter 4 are due on January 15th, if I'm not mistaken. Don't take my word for any of this, do your own research. Basically, set that money aside, pay it at the end of each quarter, and then you'll be all set, and then you might end up getting a refund at the end of the year. But the reason I do 20%, because 20% is actually not the amount of taxes that you owe. You're gonna need to calculate this because it obviously depends on your state taxes as well, but when you are self-employed, you have to pay both the employee and the employer's portion of Social Security and Medicare. So what that ends up looking like is about 7% more in taxes than what you're used to paying for if you worked a non-self-employed or like traditional 9-to-5 job in the past. I'm used to always kind of considering around 20% of taxes. Of course, you also have to consider income tax, like look at your bracket that you're expected to be in based off of your income, as well as like your spouse's income if you're married and filing jointly. And then from there, you can kind of get an estimate based off of your income tax from your bracket, the Social Security and Medicare tax that you have to pay, both the employee and employer portion, and then any state taxes you owe. So once you have that amount, you know the amount that you're expected to pay in taxes. But the cool thing about being self-employed is that you can do write-offs. And the way that that translates into Rover is usually with mileage from driving. So what I like to do is use the app Stride. No, this isn't sponsored. I just love them. And I will pull up my screen again to show you what it looks like. So basically in Stride, you have the option to just track your miles, which is what I do. So anytime I go get in my car for a Rover job, I also do Instacart, so I do the same for that. I go in here and I hit track my miles. Once I'm tracking my miles, it runs in the background. It uses GPS to see how much you drive and you're good to go. And then once you get home, you come on the app, you hit done driving, and then it stops it and records it for you. So if we go into my deductions, we'll see all of the deductions that I've had in 2021. So I've had a total of $777 worth of deductions from mileage and parking and any other things that I had to expense. Anything relating to driving, you can expense. The most cost-effective way is usually just to deduct your actual mileage. There's an amount of money per mile that you get as a deduction. And then on top of that, any tolls, any parking, things like that. You can also deduct things like phone accessories that you had to purchase to be able to do your job. So like if you bought a portable charger to bring with you so your phone doesn't die while you're doing cat sitting and you're using it solely for cat sitting, then you get to deduct that as an expense as well. You can deduct part of your phone bill or your phone cost if you're using it partially for your work, but I would look into the specifics of that. I have not specifically done that myself, so I can't really speak to it, but it really is all based off of the percent that you're using the item for the work that you're paying taxes for. The cool thing to consider here is that out of the $2,500 that I've made, about $775 worth of that is deductions. So we actually are only going to have to pay taxes on around $1,800 of that $2,500, which if we do 2,500 times 0.2, we get about $500 in taxes. And then 500 divided by 1,800 is about 27%, which 27.5% is actually the amount that I do need to pay in taxes before deductions. 20% before deductions on my income ends up equaling 27.5% after deductions with my income, if that makes any sense. So I found that on average, if I calculate 20% of my income, it ends up equaling the 27.5% in taxes I have to pay on my income after deductions. So you really want to make sure that you are tracking this because as you just saw, we only have to pay $500 in taxes. That's our estimate. But if we took our $2,500 and multiplied that by the 0.275, we actually would have had to pay $687 worth of taxes. So an easier way to look at this, if we go to tax savings and we go to the dashboard, we'll see that we have actually saved $189 in taxes just from tracking our mileage and our expenses. So that is like almost $200 saved from just tracking your mileage. Seriously, it is so important that you track your mileage if you don't want to be paying excess taxes. But the reality is, if you don't track your mileage and you don't have good records, you might get audited by the IRS if you try to guesstimate how much you drove. But yeah, that is all I have for tips and tricks and my experience cat sitting for Rover. If you have any questions, definitely leave them down in the comments below, and I'm happy to answer all of your questions. I hope this video was super helpful, and good luck on all of your Rover endeavors. I will see you all in the next one. Bye.